Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for Food Wars Season 3 on Toonami. And overall, I really enjoyed this season. Now, granted, except for the criticism that they, for some reason, divide up the seasons pretty strangely, because the way this one ended, it was like at the beginning of like the very beginning of like a next arc. It's just really weird how that kind of happens with Food Wars. So, in going with that, we pretty much get three main major arcs in this. The Lunar Festival in the beginning, the kind of central slash train Totsuki arc in the middle, and then the beginning of the regimental food war at the butt end of this. So, overall, I think they did a pretty good job of doing a uh, good work on character development, mainly with Eren Inakari and the new villain that they introduce in like the central arc, Azumi Nakari, her father. Um, because we kind of needed that kind of thing going on, because we do have we've had kind of antagonists, but we get a kind of outright villain here that was a nice kind of change of pace to kind of up the ante and actually kind of have our heroes question their cooking styles and their cooking philosophies and actually provide that kind of conflict for our heroes. So let's get into the first one first, of course. So we got the Lunar Festival, and that was a nice kind of palate cleanser of coming down from the kind of fall selection and everything, and just kind of doing something a little bit kind of lower key, but still having kind of stakes in it. We see that, of course, Totsuki puts on this Lunar Festival, and to like pretty much test the business acumen while also testing the cooking skills of the students. So we see some people going at the kind of lower tier level, which is kind of like your typical kind of festival thing that you would see at schools. Then we got the kind of mid tier where it's like, oh, those are kind of like restaurants and shit. That's kind of alright. And then we get like the mega shit like at the top of the mountain, which usually are reserved for the Council of Ten. Well, we see that after the fall selection, Soma's pretty much ready and raring to go to challenge the 10, and he tried to challenge Kuga, but he's like, you know what? You kind of beat me in the Lunar Festival, then we'll kind of see. But unbeknownst to us at the time, we know that Kuga is trying to get a rematch with the first seat, Tsukasa, and he needs to take on the Lunar Festival and get the top spot those 5 days to do that. And it's kind of a nice little rivalry that we got between Soma and Kuga. They've got very kind of similar personalities, but we see that Kuga is more focused on Chinese-style cuisine and like Szechuan, and Soma's got to come up with like different battle tactics and do his restaurant in his different kind of way to kind of at least even it out. And in that case, we see that they both technically lose because Kuga had strong sales in certain days, and Soma had sales that beat him out in other days, and neither is able to get the rematch that they wanted. But we're seeing the kind of level that Soma needs to kind of play at and what he's got to do to kind of deal with Kuga. And we see that one of the other Council of Ten students, Rindo, takes them to Tsukasa's restaurant, and we see how he is as a restaurateur. He's very exacting, like the White Knight of like the restaurant, with like how he deals with his ingredients. And we see that he's very meticulous with how he does things, but this leads to him to be in a neurotic mess where he's like, oh, was everything okay? Are you too cold? How's the like air conditioning and everything? And he's like freaking out over that. And it's kind of funny to see that he's got those kind of foibles and flaws, even though he's able to put out crazy ass dishes. It's like, all right, cool. Well, that then starts leading us to the next bit where we get introduced to Azumi Nakari, because Erina's doing her bit, and then he comes in like, hey, why are you feeding these people? They don't deserve this type of food. They don't deserve the true cuisine shit. It's like, what the fuck? And we see that he is pretty much used the Council of Ten to force out Erina's grandfather, and is trying to institute his own kind of vision for like the one true cuisine. And it's really gives a lot of character development to Erina, and it people could be like, oh, they make her so weak for this because usually she's got the tsundere and confidence and everything going on, but I disagree with that. This definitely adds the added depth to her character of her fear of her father and just like always shutting herself down because of how he would train her and use her god tongue to pretty much destroy other people's cuisine and try and get to that perfect kind of thing. Now, trying to achieve perfection is that double-edged sword. What he's done to her as a child and to have her having that fear and being that shaken now as a teenager is wrong. Like, try and do the best that you can, but don't fucking do this kind of shit where you'd come in and be like, oh, if you just follow these kind of rules and regulations, you'll be alright. And I like this challenge as an existential threat to how Totsuki's been doing its thing previously, because I didn't necessarily completely agree with how Totsuki was running things before, where you could pretty much get expelled if somebody pretty much had more than you and just like could completely beat your ass. It kind of screwed over a certain subset of Totsuki to pretty much just have these assholes raging and ranting and just doing their own kind of thing without having a brake pump on them. Azumi is a complete overcorrection of that, where you just take out everybody's individuality with the cooking, because it's kind of wrong. Granted, you want some kind of consistency in your cooking, but you got those little flourishes and touches that like Soma and his father Joichiro are able to do, and it just would screw them over. So we see that he starts kind of instituting these policies, taking out all these different kind of like clubs and all that. Actually even going to try and take down Kyokusei Dormitory, but Soma's able to take on Aizen. Even though the deck is stacked against him, he's able to go through on sheer grit and determination. As we see that Kyokusei is dealing with people trying to like bash it in and destroy it, they have freaking kind of like riot gear kind of shit, like helmets and shields, because back in the day, people would just come fighting them almost constantly. It's like, holy shit, fuck me, man, what the hell? But he's able to save Kyokusei Dormitory as we then start setting up and shifting towards the next phase, the train arc. Now, we've seen that Erina was pretty much going into the kind of submissive mode, but Hisaku's able to get her out and get her into Kyokusei Dormitory, and she's not liking what her father's doing, so she kind of starts to teach and lead the rebel faction, because we're getting to the part where we get exams and get people expelled, but she's able to help them figure out tactics that'll help them with dealing with the cheating aspects that Central does to try and like kick out the rebels. And you're just like, okay, that's really fucked up. But it's kind of cool to see how Soma and his cohort are able to get their way around those kind of things before shit starts getting even more real, because Soma, Megumi, Takumi are able to kind of get out of getting expelled, but a majority of the other rebels get kind of shit canned and fucked up, and then they get pretty much put up against like the Council of 10 kind of ones, and one of the new ones is Akira Hayama, and it's like, yes, I've gone to the evil side because that would save my mentor Jun's work and everything like that, as Azumi had promised. And someone's like, screw that shit, and they fight, and their deals more with like bear meat and everything. It's like, oh, that's kind of cool, learning about the gaminess and what that kind of means and how you prepare it and how you cook it and everything. But the issue comes in the effect that we find that Akira wasn't kind of sure who he was cooking for, and it came through in the dish, and one of the judges, which was Alice's father, is able to tell that difference, and they both pretty much fried the bear meat, and it was kind of cool seeing Soma's and how he won. But the downside is Akira then got expelled because he lost, and we start getting into like, okay, the end game goal with the Totsuki train arc. We get that Erina is pissed off at this. She revokes herself on the Council of 10, and we decide, and Jorichiro pretty much challenges Azumi to a regimental food war. What is this, you might ask? Food war on steroids, where you get groups of people fighting this. And we get more information on the regimental food wars as we get Jorichiro's background. Because that's where we got that, they kind of work together and everything, because Jorichiro's like, alright, if they win, they're not expelled, they're brought in, but if you win, I will cook your way and I will be pretty much your lackey. And Azumi's like, I can't pass that up. And we learned that Azumi was doing this because he wanted to exact vengeance for Jorichiro. That's really weird when Jorichiro's like, this is kind of fucked up. Why are you fucking doing this? And we kind of get the background. We see that Erena's grandfather comes in. Dojima pops up as well, who has been a contemporary with Joichiro, a friend as well. And we see that when Joichiro was in school, people would like fight him and everything, and they kept doing challenges, so he decided to do a regimental food war against 100 people and whoop their asses. But the thing is, that mounting pressure of always trying to outdo himself, the kind of pitfall of success led to a mental breakdown where he just kind of left school. Even Erena's grandfather at the time was like, dude, just go. This is fucking making you nuts. Just go, walk to Earth, do your shit. And that's, of course, how we see Joichiro doing everything like that and getting into his face. It's like, okay, so that's how the regimental food war works. Getting everything kind of like worked up and all that, and then kind of get everybody kind of situated. It's like, okay, cool. They figured out that they're going to have to really know each other, as we see Erina and Soma do a cooking thing with Joichiro, while Dojima was going with Megumi and Takumi. It's like, okay, cool. That's kind of cool to kind of see that go on. So they kind of build up their team, which includes Ishiki, as he's kind of renounced himself on the 10 as well, and Mimasaka, and some other kind of like crazy people that we don't get really introduced to, because they're just in the background, because it's like, we gotta have all these regimental food war people. Alright, cool. So they then go, and we start seeing towards the end of it. This is weird, because this is where it starts the regimental food war arc, but it's like towards the ass end, and we get like the first card where we get Ishiki whooping one of the 10's asses. We get Soma taking on one of the 10, Nene, and seeing how he deals with the noodles, because the ingredient that was picked for them was pretty much her ball court, but she didn't take into account the temperature differences, and that affected the aroma and taste and all that, where Soma's worked out better. We also saw the two randos for Central, and then the Rebel side fight, and the Rebel side won, so they won the first card. Azumi's like pissed off. He's like, ah, fuck this shit. Eat my ass. And, well, granted, politely. Because he's like not one to lose his cool immediately or to show you that he's lost his cool. So I liked where it was set up. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. I want to see how they're able to beat him and everything. It's just the Strangers of Cut-Offs at doing this. And I see that like season 4 is like 12 episodes or whatnot. It's really weird how inconsistent the episode orders are for this. And I would have rather had them almost stop it before the regimental food war. Now granted, I'm not one to advocate for filler, but I almost would have rather had them kind of like stretch the story a little bit, fill it up a little bit with like the Lunar Festival to do something a little bit better with that, take up maybe half the season, then the other half dealing with the introduction of Azumi, the whole central bit, going through like the train arc to help set us up for the eventual regimental food war, because it's really weird that you get boom, boom, and then he's a little bit star back here. And you're just like, alright, I guess you could do that. So that's just my biggest kind of criticism on that. That's about it. Otherwise, I like how they give us information and teach us stuff about cooking. I like seeing the different kind of characters, different kind of facets, though the main ones are, of course, Soma and Erina. That's kind of the weakness. I understand that they're their kind of anchor characters. We get character development with our villains as well, with Azumi and Joichiro, but that's because they become very important with what's going on plot-wise. we get some kind of check-ins with the other ones, but a weakness I would say is that we don't get a lot of character development for the other characters, which is kind of weird because Soma pretty much stays the same as more of a flat character. Erina gets the most spotlight with, of course, her father being the main antagonistic villain in the bigger kind of story of this arc, and her how she has to deal with that and try and break away from the destructive influence of her father. So, overall, I would still recommend this. If you're really into Food Wars, I enjoyed it. I think you'd enjoy this. If for some reason you're not into Food Wars and you just randomly saw this, I think you would still get enough information from it to be able to enjoy it. In that, yeah, you might not know everything going on or character relationships, but you would pretty much be able to infer and figure out what's kind of going on. So it'd be kind of weird, but if you feel like it, go for it. But overall, I enjoyed this and I would definitely recommend it. So those are my opinions on the anime. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.